Hello, dear students. Welcome once again on this platform of my e-lecture. I'm Dr. Anupama Rajoria with you all today to discuss one of the most famous short stories of Munshi Premchand titled The Shroud. Before starting with the details of the short story, let us first have a brief biographical introduction or the biographical sketch of this great writer. Munshi Premchand ji was born on 31st of July 1880 at Banaras, and he died on 8th of October 1936 at Banaras. The real name of Munshi Premchand was Dhanpat Rai Srivastava, but he wrote under the pen name of Nawab Rai initially, but later on he changed it to Premchand. The prefix Munshi was an honorary title. If we consider the literary era in which he was writing, he was writing in the early 20th century, the colonial India or the pre-independent time. He has a big collection of literary works to his credit. He has written more than 300 short stories and 14 novels. Because of the exemplary portrayal of situation, of characterization, especially in novels, to name a few, Karmabhumi, Nirmala, he was conferred with the title of Upanyas Samrat. He wrote both in Hindi and Urdu. And one of the most important aspects of Premchandji is that his texts find relevance even today. Each and every story, if you read, the novel you read, you will feel as if it's so alive today. And that is why his works have been translated into a number of languages. They have been adapted into theatre, screen, and TV serials too. Now, before discussing the various themes Premchandji has talked about or discussed in his works, it is important to have a background into the scenario of India, because whatever conditions, whatever situations, whatever problems India was going through are completely or totally reflected in his novels and his short stories. So if I talk about the early 20th century, it was a time when India was facing problems such as colonialism, imperialism, and was parallelly witnessing the national liberation movement. And that is something very important historically. Now, Premchandji wrote on a variety of subjects, touching almost all the aspects of his contemporary socio-political issues. And as you all can perceive in his works, right from the beginning of his creative life, he devoted to the cause of the downtrodden, especially the peasants, the marginalized, the low caste section of the society. So if we just go through briefly and look at the various themes he has portrayed. So he talks rampantly about the social conditions of India, especially the conflict and the exploitation which occurred between the upper and the lower castes. He also talks about the exploitation of the downtrodden, especially the laborers, peasants and poor, because we know that it was a time when India was dominant by laborers, peasants on one side, and the zamidars on the other, and the Britishers on the other. So it was a kind of a triangle, and the most affected were these downtrodden people. He also talks very, very explicitly regarding the conditions of women of his time. He not only talks about their subjugation or their exploitation, he also talks about the exploitation of widows, especially. What sufferings they are subjected to once they lose their husband. He also talks about the demerits and the bad consequences of child marriage. But on the same hand, he also talks about the positivity and the need of the society to advocate and to accept widow remarriages. His works also talk about emancipated women on the other hand, because he believed in the fact that strong women also occur who are not ready to be subjugated at any cost. Personally, my dear students, I remember having read Karma Bhumi, and I was really inspired, you can say, by the character of the female protagonist in the novel. She is a very strong woman who not only supports her husband both morally and physically, but she also talks about the importance of women education, about their emancipation, their equal rights in the society, simultaneously also kind of talking against and raising her voice against the British Raj. So she is one of a very progressive female character you can observe in his works. He also talks about gender inequality, how in a same household, because he is a boy or he is a male, irrespective of any age, he is given privilege in comparison to women in the same household. How the society of that time was completely a patriarchal society. And yes, his works are a moving, you can say, picture of the human psychology. Whatever he has written, the characters he has dealt with, whether they are the main characters, whether they are one of the most appealing characters, or whether they are the most unappealing characters of fictional world, they are all working according to their mind, and they are an example of a study in human psychology, because he too believed that it is all the working of the mind that is reflected in our actions. Now, if we begin about the short story, The Shroud. Now, he never wrote in English, but this particular short story, which was originally titled Coffin, was translated into English, and what you are going to study and prepare and understand is this translated work. And this was one of the most famous and most applauded short story of Premchandji, and that is why it has been translated into various languages. It was published in 1936, just months before he died. And If we just study about the storyline, this story is set in a village of Orissa with the backdrop of a dark, chilly winter night. It is the story of a low class and a low caste family. These are the three characters, as you can see on this slide, the main characters of the short story. Gisu, who is an old man and he is the head of the family. His son Madhav and Madhav's wife Budhiya. So, as the story opens, we read that Budhiya is in terrible labor pains and is shrieking due to the unbearable pains she is going through, pains of delivery, her labor pains. And the father and son, the duo, are sitting outside the room and very insensitively talking about some kind of black magic cast on Budhiya, since she's not able to deliver quickly, and they do not care about her pain because they are not providing any kind of help to her, any kind of medical help. Rather, they show their helplessness in giving any kind of even help of a nurse or a midwife from the village. And Madhav very, very inhumanely, I would like to quote here, says, "If she has to die, why doesn't she get it over and done with? What can I do by looking at her?" So this is so strange. Madhav's wife is almost at the threshold of a delivery and she is not being attended by her own husband. So probably both of them, Madhav and Gisu, are waiting for her to die so that they can sleep well at ease. Now we are also told by the narrator that they are not only just talking to each other and waiting for things from the side of Budhiya to get over, but they are remembering some past feast, a wedding feast they had attended and enjoyed the food. They talk about that cuisine, and now also they are very shamelessly eating potatoes, irrespective of even giving a thought of care to Budhiya. Now, as this is the beginning of the story, the main events which then follow are that in the absence of any help or a doctor or a nurse or a midwife, Budhiya dies and the child also dies in the womb. Now they are not in any kind of shame or shock or mourning. Rather, they just start off with the drama of wailing badly, beating their chest, shouting at their highest pitch, so that they can attract the people of the neighborhood to help them with the last rites of Budhiya, because they do not have money to buy even the shroud of Budhiya. And as their motives are, and as they succeed in doing so, the zamidar gives them 2 rupees, followed by rest of the villagers who then also contribute according to their pockets. Some people suggest to cut the wood for them, and with few rupees in their pocket, by afternoon they set off towards the market to buy a shroud for Budhiya. And while they are looking for a shroud, Gisu questions the customs made by the people, the higher class, regarding the rites, last rites, and he says, so I would like to quote Budhiya when he says, "What a horrible custom! One who doesn't even have a rag to cover one's nakedness during one's life needs a brand new shroud after death." So finally, they too By saying so and accepting the fact that they do not want to confer to those rituals and customs which are set by the higher society, they do not buy a shroud, and they buy some liquor, they buy some snacks, some fried fish, and they order a big quantity of food, and then they go back home. Buddha's corpse or dead body is still lying, waiting for the shroud and for an honorable last rites. The two are sitting. They shamelessly drink, they eat, and not only that, then they dance and they sing to the extent that they drop on the floor, and the story ends here. So finally, with the end of the story, we realize, or we are told by the narrator, that Buddha still lies unattended without a shroud and does not receive an honorable last rite, the cremation. Now, if we move towards the preparation, what all points we need to prepare so that we can answer in our examination. We have to prepare the various themes which are talked about or written in this short story. The theme of selfishness, self-importance, that of laziness, negative determination, and shamelessness of Madhav and Ghisu, because we are told that they are determined to follow laziness in their life. They don't want to work, and they give utmost priority to themselves only, neglecting others. This short story also talks about the gender roles, that how Buddha placed equally to Madhav, yet she is denied even of the honor or care or love that she should have in the household. It also talks about the honor. Buddha doesn't receive that honor, and Madhav and Ghisu do not mind if they are not given any kind of honor by the society. The major thing is that they belong to the low class, but it was more of their nature and their actions that they were despised and abused or exploited by the higher society people. It also talks about the responsibility. Out of the three characters, it was only Buddha who has shown responsibility, because the day she entered the household, she took over all the charge. She brought in order the disordered household. She looks after the kitchen and the care of the two. She also looks after arranging of the food of the two. And eventually what happens is that the two become more ignorant and more lazy, because they have stopped paying attention to the household once Buddha has entered. It also talks about the plight of women, that yes, being a woman, that is why she is suffering such a lot. Buddha and Madhav are ready to spend money on themselves, their liquor and food, but they are not ready to spend even a rupee on this critical moment which Buddha was going through. So these are the various themes you have to prepare. Now, regarding the setting of the short story, it is set in a small village in Odisha. If we talk about the characterization, the three main characters, they are one of the most unappealing characters ever portrayed by Premchandji, because they are not physically strong or physically good looking, with good values, with good actions, yet they become attractive if you consider them in the light of human psychology, that how psychology works even for the most unappealing characters. Character of Ghisu, Madhav and Buddha, all three have to be prepared in the light of their actions and what were the reasons that they behaved in such a manner. Was it that they belong to the low class and they have been brought up with the bias that they are exploited or they are subjugated by the higher class, that they were rebelling in their own actions against them. If we talk about the plot talks about the poverty and the filth all around, filth of actions and filth of morals also. And it also talks about the emotions, how they are playing with the emotions of the others. It's a kind of rebellion that, okay, if the higher society is exploiting them, then they are playing with their emotions. How they are extracting money out of them, how they take loan from them, they don't return it, and such things. The narrative technique is also an important aspect of any story or a novel, and here we see that this story has the third person narration. Now, in case of dealing Budhya, we generally have just a brief importance of the gender issues, that how she has to suffer because of being a woman in this society, that gender issues don't generally exist only in higher class or upper class, but also at the lower section of the society. Human psychology, yes, all are moving pictures of this psychology, and whatever Gisu and Madhav have been doing, you just have to analyze it under the light of that psychology. Now, if I talk about symbolism, Shroud is used as a symbol throughout the short story. The story begins with the need of Shroud for Budhya and ends with the need of Shroud for Budhya, because throughout the story she does not receive the shroud which she should have, because that was her right, that was her honor. Other than that, the shroud is also symbolic, first of the poverty that covers humanity of Gisu and Madhav, and secondly, it is also symbolic of the covering of social structures which make these two characters, Madhav and Gisu, insensitive to women and fellow men. So, dear students, with all these technicalities, now you will be able to assess that how the title of the short story Shroud is really relevant. A brief piece of, you can say, a suggestion or advice to you all. Since you all have read and understood the translated short story, just go through the original text, Kafan in Hindi, and try to analyze yourself. Which work did you like more? Whether you preferred to enjoy your reading in Hindi or in English. And when we get together again, or maybe online or on some other platform, then let us discuss about it, because translations are a new part of our life and our literature. Okay, thanking you, dear students. Have a good day.